Parson, can you give us your issues about education? How are you working? Because all the designers come from there. Tell us about
Yeah, in some ways, I think it's important to mention that I also spent over 15 years in the industry focused on sustainability issues, which led me to go into education for the past 5 years. Because I saw the challenges of what was happening in large companies. And I want to kind of touch on that as a starting point. The truth is, fashion is not just clothing. It's something much more emotional, and it really engages us in a different way. It's part of representing who we are. It's a way of building culture for society. So it means that we are going to continue to create and use fashion in different ways to show who we are, what we are part of, and what does it mean for the community that we are engaged with. So that emotional element is critical as we reimagine how we are thinking to take the industry forward, because past 100 years has been creating an industry that has been very much focused on bringing efficiencies and finding ways of growing the financial aspect of the industry itself. And we lost quite a lot of things in that journey. And as I went into education, it was critical for us to understand how do we bring that emotional connection and the individual connection to what really happens across the value chain. And with that in mind, education has shifted its focus on not just showing how to create garments, but also create designs that are purposeful. And we are also at a moment where designer and customers getting closer to each other. Through the use of technology, we are constantly trying to figure out how do we have a much more of a direct dialogue between the designer and the consumer itself, which opens the door for us to really rethink the whole value chain, recognizing that this may have a lot of also positive and negative impacts in that journey. We have to think about what collaboration means and who we have to be thoughtful about as we are reimagining and redesigning that system. So if you look at what's happening in the education space and with the curriculum, most of the design schools now around the world have already looked at what does sustainability mean and how we embed it into curriculum. But more than anything now, putting this idea of designing for a purpose into the core of what they do. And designing for purpose should lead to a very different way of creating garments. But also technology is now making designer to play a much larger role than they used to, where they were just in the studio coming up with creative ideas and allowing the business side to take over merchandisers, supply chain, to really put their input and potentially change a lot of the ideas to only focus on the sales aspect. So obviously I'm on the design-led side, and I care about businesses that are designer-led, because the emotion stays at the core of that business. And it's not just about creating a business that's going to achieve several $1 billion of revenue, but also looking at how do we create an ecosystem which is much more collective, and then allow people to create in these unique ways that are much more circular, responsible, sustainable, engaging with local communities, celebrating craft, and allow them to really directly tell that story to the individuals buying the product, rather than just using artificial intelligence to second guess what would be the next big trend and try to create that in a very fast way and try to sell as many of it for the cheapest price possible. So there will be a lot of balances that are competing in this journey. So there won't be one winner out of it, but I think we all play a role in this. And I think what's amazing is design school and education is now moving in a direction, trying to give tools to designers to be able to fight the good fight and to be able to change where the industry is heading.